Hi, it's Dave. Welcome to episode 241. Today's episode is going to be a live stream, and we're going to be focusing on the news of Jeff Bezos stepping down as Amazon CEO. This was just announced a few hours ago, and it's an interesting move by Amazon and Jeff Bezos because it kind of comes at this height of Amazon's dominance. And now Jeff Bezos is setting his sight on another set of initiatives, and he's got kind of a new stage of life planned. And in this video, I want to take a deeper look. That's kind of the whole ethos of my channel. A lot of people will just kind of look at this news, say, okay, move on, Jeff Bezos is retiring. However, I think there's a lot more valuable lessons to learn here. And one of the reasons is because Amazon is this generational company. It's a massive success, and leading that company is Jeff Bezos with his amazing grand vision and ambition, along with this unprecedented level of execution that we really haven't seen on the scale of Amazon in our generation. A lot of people will discount Jeff Bezos because they are prejudiced against him. And I think this is one of the dangers, of kind of media coverage and being kind of influenced by popular opinion. And a lot of times people will just make a quick judgment on the surface level of a CEO. And the more power, the more wealth, the larger the company is, I think a lot of times these CEOs can become targets. And so you'll see a growing kind of opinion of people who dislike, let's say, a wealthy CEO like Jeff Bezos. I remember back in the day, in the early 2000s, the culprit was Bill Gates, right? He was going to be the Antichrist, and people just really ganged up on him as the worst and the most evil person, right, on earth. He was the richest person in the world back then as well. And a lot of it is this media-fueled kind of shallow analysis of a person who's, let's say, wealthy. And sure, there could have been questionable practices getting to there. I'm not going to defend Bill Gates in any way, but I think it can be an overboard kind of shallow judgment. And I think that defeats a lot of the interesting learning possibilities we can have for certain CEOs. Now, I want to look at Jeff Bezos' announcement a bit closer. And here's kind of the flow of today's video. First, we're going to look at the announcement. We're going to look at kind of Jeff Bezos' other initiatives, what he's going to be spending his time on. And then we're going to start diving into Jeff Bezos' key insight as a CEO that will help us, I think, and help me to kind of analyze future companies that could be generational companies. Like, that's the whole point. And then we're going to wrap up with some speculative thoughts and some insights on what I think the future of Amazon is. Do they have a chance? And what are some kind of key wrap-up lessons we can take? All right, so let's go ahead and let's take a look first at what's going on in the news here. So here we have Amazon. They reported their first $100 billion quarter today, and this was after market close today. And right after, in this earnings report, right, Amazon reports that Jeff Bezos is stepping down in Q3 of this year. So it's going to be, a slow transition. They're replacing Jeff Bezos with the head of Amazon Web Services, who is Andy Jassy, who's been with Amazon forever. Here, CNBC says the company delivered its largest quarter by revenue of all time at $125 billion, pushing it past the symbolic $100 billion mark for the first time. So this is crazy. I mean, Amazon is delivering $125 billion, not in a year, right? Like, that would be amazing. They're delivering $125 billion in a single quarter. Shares are up 1% in after hours because, Amazon blew out, expectations for revenue. All right, let's look at this a little bit more here. So if you look at, here's a chart of Amazon's quarterly revenue over the past 5 years or so, and you can see it's really starting out at like 30 billion. It keeps on growing. This is the power of compound growth. When you have a company with true product superiority and with execution, and they keep on ramping, their quarterly numbers are going from 30 to $50 billion to $70 billion to 80, and it hits $100 billion in this past quarter. To have a more more tangible look at this, check this out. In 2008 of June, Amazon's quarterly revenue was $4 billion in one quarter, right? And now they're reaching $125 billion just about 12 or 13 years later. Amazon is definitely one of the amazing success stories in our generation. All right, let's look at some of the more details of what's going on with Jeff Bezos stepping down here. So the transition, Bezos will transition to be the chairman of Amazon's board. So here's the tricky part. As the chairman of the board, you have power to pretty much, lobby your other board members and try to fire the CEO or keep the CEO accountable. So Bezos will still have some control and influence over Amazon. However, as chairman of the board, it's always a tricky thing because you want to respect your CEO who's going to have pretty much control of the decisions being made. So a lot of times when a CEO steps down, for example, when Bill Gates stepped down at Microsoft, he doesn't have much influence or really control. It's really up to the CEO. Another example is with Starbucks. When Howard Schultz stepped down, he didn't have the influence, and his successor didn't really, have what it took to really execute on the level that the previous CEO did. And so this is a tricky part, I think, that Jeff Bezos will have to navigate. All right, so Bezos says he's going to stay engaged in important Amazon projects and have more time to focus on the Bezos Earth Fund, the Blue Origin Spaceship Company, the Washington Post, and Amazon Day One Fund. Now I'm going to go through a few of these things of what Jeff Bezos is going to be focused on going forward. And you have some CEOs, Satya Nadella from Microsoft and Sundar Pichai from Google. They are congratulating Jeff Bezos as well. All right, so here's Jeff Bezos's letter here. He says, I'm going to focus my energies and attention on new products. Amazon, he says, currently employs 1.3 million talented and dedicated people. I mean, this is a massive global company we're talking about. And it says he believes Amazon couldn't be better positioned for the future. We're firing on all cylinders just as the world needs us to. We have things in the pipeline and will continue to astonish. And his last words are interesting. He says, keep inventing and don't despair when at first the idea looks crazy. Remember to wander. Let curiosity be your compass. It remains day one, Jeff. So this is kind of the key insight that Jeff Bezos brings. It's called day one. It's his day one philosophy where it's always day one. So what I'm going to do with this video, I'm going to transition into what I think this day one philosophy really means. And then I'm going to be talking about kind of, how Jeff Bezos is going to be spending his time. All right. So what is this day one philosophy and what can we learn about it that will help us analyze generational companies? Okay. So this is a letter that Jeff Bezos wrote in 2016. It's kind of one of his pivotal kind of key moments where he really described this philosophy that he's had in a way that really has caught on and has become kind of the DNA of Amazon. And he basically says, what's day two? It's all about day one. So he says day two is status. It's followed by irrelevance, followed by excruciating, painful decline, followed by death. And that's why it's always day one. So the building that he's worked in all this time is called day one. It's always going to be day one. To be sure, this kind of decline would happen in extreme slow motion. An established company might harvest day two for decades, but the final result would still come. Meaning day two could look decent and it still could be profitable, but eventually it's going to die because you're in day two, you're not in day one. Here he says, here's the essential parts of day one, how to keep in day one. Customer obsession, skeptical view of proxies, the eager adoption of external trends, and high velocity decision making. So let's go through each one of these things. So first off is customer obsession. And he talks about this way. He says there are many ways to center a business. You can be competitor focused, you can be product focused, you can be technology focused, you can be business model focused, and there are more. But in my view, obsessive customer focus is by far the most protective of day one vitality. Why? There are many advantages to customer-centric approach, but here's the big one. Customers are always beautifully, wonderfully dissatisfied, even when they report being happy and business is great. Even when they don't know it yet, customers want something better, and your desire to delight customers will drive you to invent on their behalf. So this is kind of like, the Zappos shoe company founder, the late Tony Hsieh. He kind of pioneered this and pushed forward this whole idea of customer-centric, delighting your customers, right, as the first priority. And Amazon and Jeff Bezos have really owned this, even since the beginning, right, of Amazon. Number two is resist proxy. So this is interesting. He says, as the company gets larger and more complex, there's a tendency to manage to proxies. This comes in many shapes and sizes and is dangerous, subtle, and very day two. So what does this mean? A common example is process as a proxy. So good process serves you so you can serve your customers. But if you're not watchful, the process can become the thing. This can happen very easily in large organizations. The process becomes a proxy for the result you want. You stop looking at the outcomes and just make sure you're doing the process right. So this is actually a huge key insight by Jeff Bezos. You have a company of 1.3 million people, and what do they consider success? They consider success, probably, at least the default position in many corporations is, hey, I got to do my job. I got to go through the meetings and do my input, right? Not fail, not make big mistakes. That's kind of the process, or what Jeff Bezos is calling the proxy. And Jeff Bezos is saying, hey, that doesn't matter. That's not good enough. In fact, that's day two. You're going to die like that. The only thing the thing that you need to focus on is the outcome, which is how are we delighting customers, right? And that's the focus. And it's kind of interesting on how he approaches that. All right, number three, embrace external trends. He says the outside world can push you into day two if you won't or can't embrace powerful trends quickly. If you fight them, you'll probably be fighting the future. Embrace them and you'll have a tailwind. These big trends are not that hard to spot. They get talked about and written about a lot, but they can be strangely hard for large organizations to embrace. We're in the middle of an obvious one right now: machine learning and artificial intelligence. Now, this key insight of just like following the trends, right? Especially the big trends. And for Jeff Bezos to just be, kind of just use his obvious common sense, like, hey, machine learning, artificial intelligence, this is a huge, huge external trend. And if you miss that trend, you're going to basically miss huge opportunities, and you'll be in day two before you know it, right? And so this is one of the things that Jeff Bezos has done a great job. He's kind of kept Amazon at the cusp of relevance by not ignoring just obvious major trends. All right, the last thing he talks about is high velocity decision making. So day two companies make high quality decisions, but they make high quality decisions slow. This is the key. To keep the energy and dynamism of day one, you have to somehow make high quality, high velocity decisions, easy for startups and very challenging for large organizations. The senior team at Amazon is determined to keep our decision making velocity high. Speed matters in business. Plus, a high velocity decision making environment is more fun too. We don't know all the answers, but here are some thoughts. So he goes on and he says, hey, the whole thing isn't trying to make a perfect decision. You got to make the best decision you can, but quickly, and do that quickly over time, because there's thousands and thousands of decisions a business needs to make over time. So he says most decisions probably should be made with somewhere around 70% of the information you wish you had. If you wait for 90%, in most cases, you're probably being slow. Plus, either way, you need to be good at recognizing and correcting bad decisions. In other words, don't be too afraid of making a mistake. If you're good at course correcting, being wrong may be less costly than you think, whereas being slow is going to be expensive for sure. It's interesting how this whole ethos of kind of making quick decisions, moving fast, breaking things, it's kind of one of the common themes for a lot of these kind of generational kind of breakout winner companies. Look at Tesla. They're moving so fast, they break things, and then later on they have to fix and pick up the pieces. Like, for example, Model 3 production ramp, they kind of overshot with all these robots and complex procedures, and they really had to, it was probably, it could have been a bigger mistake than they realized, but they were able to correct, right? So you want to err, these generational companies, they want to err on the side of just being too fast. Look at Facebook. The whole motto, or one of the mottos, is move fast, break things. And that's the thing is, it's okay to break things, but it's not okay to not move fast. And that's kind of the ethos of kind of this fast decision making. I think that's interesting. A lot of times, as a company grows to billions, tens of billions, hundreds of billions of market cap, trillions, the CEOs and the management get scared of losing all of that market cap, all of that revenue, and that nervousness, that anxiety comes into decision making where you want to make slower decisions. So you wait for 90% or 95% of the information, and before you know it, you're moving so slow, you're already in day two, right? You're a day two company just waiting to die. Jeff Bezos also says, we use the phrase disagree and commit. So they don't need consensus. It's about, that's the secondary thing. we're going to disagree on a lot of things, but let's just commit to it, right? It's okay to disagree and commit. And it's one of the things that Bezos really promotes. This whole day one philosophy is kind of one of the core. And one of the interesting things about Amazon is they have excelled in execution. And it's amazing how many business lines, how many things Amazon is doing. And it's all brought together with this day one philosophy and this thing of fast decision making and moving forward. All right. Now let's talk about a couple other things. What is Jeff Bezos doing with his time? So he's got the day one fund. So what is this day one fund? He's giving grants out to folks, and it's a $2 billion commitment basically to make meaningful and lasting impacts in 2 areas. They want to fund nonprofits that are helping families who are experiencing homelessness, and then they want to create a network of new nonprofit tier 1 preschools, so preschools for low-income communities. So that's one of Jeff Bezos' projects. All right, another thing that Jeff Bezos is doing, he's doing a $10 billion Earth Fund. So this is going to be a fund, and it's already started, and he's already starting to donate money to organizations who are fighting climate change. And so he announced this back in November, actually last year, I think earlier. And then he, in November, he said he'll donate $791 million to 16 organizations working to protect the environment. And he announced the first funds, $100 million going to Environmental Defense Fund, the World Resources Institute, Natural Resources Defense Council, World Wildlife Fund, etc. Okay, so that's another thing. Here's another thing that Jeff Bezos is working on, and we'll go into Blue Origin here. So Blue Origin is a space company, and I know Jeff Bezos can get flack on copying Elon Musk with a lot of things, but my personal view of Jeff Bezos is that he is very, very serious and intent on space travel, and he's held this passion from a very young age, even growing up, and this is something he's going to be focusing on in an increasing way. And so in a lot of ways, the mission of Blue Origin is very, very similar to SpaceX. And I can understand why it irritates Elon Musk in different ways. But it's basically they want to create reusable rockets, right? And they're actually within Amazon also they're doing a similar satellite kind of constellation, internet constellation program, and this is what's kind of butting heads with Starlink. And so there's already been news that Amazon, Jeff Bezos is trying to stop Starlink from getting access or changing their access from, they're wanting to go lower. So SpaceX is needing to go lower in altitude, but Amazon is blocking them. And so it's becoming an issue. And I foresee this in the next 10 to 15 years, this kind of rivalry between, Blue Origins, also, Amazon satellite constellation, et cetera, is going to be more in tension with SpaceX and Elon. So I don't think Jeff Bezos in any way is kind of retiring per se. He's kind of redirecting his efforts. All right, I want to talk about one last thing, or not one last thing, but one more thing here, which I think is another key insight of Amazon. I'm not sure if how many people really understand this, but I think this is something I've heard many years ago, and I've actually kind of dwelt upon it throughout many years, and it's become something where I understand there's an amazing, interesting sort of genius behind this approach. So here's what it is. When Jeff Bezos kind of manages his many product teams and many divisions, one of the key things is that he requires his teams to write a future press release before launching a new product or initiative. Meaning, one of the first things that a team in Amazon will do is they'll actually write a future press release for this product that maybe they're just starting developing on. Meaning, they don't even have a product, right? They're just brainstorming and trying to develop a product. Most companies are going to work from there, and they're going to try to make something that the customer likes. What Amazon is doing is they're doing the opposite. They're going from the outcome first. And this goes back to the day one philosophy where don't rely on proxies, focus on the outcome and the customer delight. So they make a press release, and it's a real press release. I've seen some of these for products that don't exist or, that they're developing. And it's as if they've launched it, right? And they explain what this product is. Actually, I'll go through some of this article here. So the future press release means that it should be written as if the product had already has already launched, and more importantly, is already a success in the marketplace. So sometimes they have to write the press release 6 months even before they release the product. And the press release should explain why the product improves the customer's experience, what it does better than any other product in its category, and how it delights the customer. So this is key. So the press release needs to focus on the value proposition. Like, why is this product so much better than anything else, right, in its category? What delights the customer? And then also this future press release has to contain clear, measurable results that you've achieved, including financial, operating, and market share results. And lastly, you should discuss the issues that need to be addressed to achieve success. So in other words, you got to outline the challenges that your team, so-called, has overcome, right, to get to this product release. So this will give your team clarity on the problems that they will have to solve to reach the goal. So this whole future press release idea that is, Amazon and Jeff Bezos has developed over the years is something that's really close to the DNA of Amazon, where it's not just talk. Like, Jeff Bezos isn't just talking about customer delight or focusing on outcome or fast decision making. Jeff Bezos is actually making it happen on a day-to-day basis for over 2 decades. And this, not just on a small scale, but on a large scale across 1 million employees. And so this is actually something to think about. This is amazing. Over a huge organization of 1 million employees, Jeff Bezos has really taken management execution to a completely different level. And these future press releases I just talked about, this is something that happens in, all across Amazon. And this is how they kind of develop their products. They develop the things. They focus on the outcome, on the customer delight. The execution that Amazon has, I think, is severely underrated. And lots of people they don't. And here's the thing: a lot of people, they won't dive deep into why is Amazon a generational company. They think, oh, Amazon, is just lucky. Jeff Bezos is just greedy. All sorts of stuff. But when you dive deep into it, it makes sense. Like, oh my gosh, they've really dug deep to find the keys to execution, the keys to make products that are better than other products, the keys to really connect to customers. And that's why the result is you have this company that has compounded in growth over time, has grown their lead in e-commerce. And that's why, you've got this Amazon at its height. All right, so let's talk about a couple other things here. Is what's going to happen with Amazon going forward? Can Amazon keep its kind of dominance in e-commerce, or will it lose its edge going forward? And here's my perspective, is that I think to find another Jeff Bezos or another Elon Musk, or whoever you add into that kind of a generational company CEO mix, it's tough because you have to add this crazy, mind-boggling ambition that I talked about in my last episode, but you have to add this amazing execution, which I'm talking about more in this episode. And you need to bring all of that together. But the thing is, a lot of ambitious people, they don't execute very well. They might have grand dreams and lots of talk, but when it comes to walking the walk and actually putting it into action, they get tripped up, right? And it's hard to have that perseverance to push through. It's really hard. And then on top of that, you have to add something else, which I think is this empathy and this connection to the customer to really develop product excellence. Like, you really need to have a better product than anything else in its category. And to bring these 3 things together, where you have ambition and execution and real empathy for the customer to push through product excellence. And you might actually need like design and, really, understanding overall experience. All of this put together is an extremely rare combination to be able to excel in all of these areas in one CEO. And one of the reasons why I think it's rare is because I think it comes from kind of a multidisciplinary thinking or multidisciplinary background, where you're looking at things from different angles. And because you look at things from different angles, you're able to see the importance of ambition, but also the challenge of ambition, where ambition alone doesn't do much. You've got to have the execution, but you've also got to have the product excellence. To really value all of these things and to excel is really difficult without a broad kind of multidisciplinary thinking and approach. I think sometimes, you might have a company that's all about execution, but their ambition isn't big enough, so they're just trapped in a small market. Or you have, for for example, with Amazon, without Jeff Bezos, let's say you don't have the mind-boggling ambition and drive, of Jeff Bezos. It's possible when Amazon starts new projects and they get stalled. Like every large company is going to have stalls and hurdles, and the larger the company, the larger these divisions teams are, the more likely big projects get stalled. Now, how do you get breakthrough? Typically, you get breakthrough because you have a CEO that's just crazy, that's just pushing the envelope, right? Pushing the whole company, saying faster, faster, faster. We got to meet this goal. Push this product, put this line, and just doubling down, right? I'm not afraid of making mistakes or risk. But without that ambitious CEO that's willing to double down and take some risks, what you have is you have the invasion of risk adverse managers who are trying to keep their position. And what Jeff Bezos is talking about with proxies, like they're just focused on the process, meetings after meetings, right? Reports after reports, right? Just trying not to make the mistake. That's success. Whereas, Bezos is saying the real success is the outcome, is delighting the customer. I think this is going to be challenging for Amazon going forward. I think over the next 5 or 10 years, probably Amazon is going to do quite well because a lot of the products and initiatives is already baked in. Like it's already deep ingrained in Amazon's timeline going forward. And the culture has been set over 20 plus years in Amazon. So I'm not too concerned about Amazon's future in the next 5 or 10 years. But I think, it is a question like, is Amazon, is it even possible to stop Amazon from sinking into day two? Eventually, right, at some point, whether it be in 5 years, in 10 years, in 50 years, or 100 years, the company is going to sink in. Every company has kind of a life cycle. It's not normal for a company to be in day one for 1,000 years, right? And so that's the reality of where Amazon's at. More specifically regarding Amazon's future. So Amazon, they make a lot of their income actually, not revenue, but their profit from Amazon Web Services. And this is actually a huge and growing area where they're providing web services. They're kind of like the plumbing of the internet. There are other companies, obviously, with Microsoft Azure and Google Cloud, etc., who are providing these web services. But Amazon is really kind of, in my opinion, still a forefront leader in providing kind of the lowest cost, simplest to use web services. They're doubling down on AI, on machine learning. I think it's a huge field, and the head of AWS is going to be the head of Amazon, so that's good news. With e-commerce going forward, I think a lot of it depends on how Amazon approaches logistics. And with logistics, I think one of the key things is autonomous driving. One of the ways that Amazon is able to provide free shipping, or so-called free shipping or low-cost shipping, is they're able to have a huge logistics network that is just oiled and is just massively using economies of scale to drive down costs. Now, the biggest risk for Amazon with e-commerce, I think, is if they mess up with autonomous driving and they don't establish themselves as one of the leaders early on. If they lose out to companies like Tesla, and Tesla achieves a massive lead and dominance in autonomous driving, Tesla could leverage that to actually enter logistics and shipping industries, and then Amazon will be at a loss. So it's going to be Amazon's move to really make billions and billions of dollars of investments to not lose out with autonomous driving. And that's why I think, head out to 2030, Amazon and Tesla, they are competitors in a lot of ways. And also Google. Just recently, Ford and Google signed a 6-year deal, and it was kind of vague in terms of what they're offering, data connectivity, but they're offering, the gist of it is Google Android is going to replace the entire user experience inside Ford vehicles, and this is kind of the first move where Google might offer an autonomous driving package inside that. They might even give it for free. And so Amazon, Google, Apple, if they come up with a car, Tesla, they're all headed in a crash course in some ways. Tesla's in the lead. It's in my view, it's Tesla's game to lose. But yeah, and Tesla can also branch off to other areas that are non-transportation related. So it's going to be an amazing, I think, next 10 years of what we see going forward. But Amazon without Bezos, man, that's a tough one. We're going to have to see on how this new CEO really, thinks outside the box and really leads in an amazing way. It's possible that this new CEO can lead in a better way than even Jeff Bezos. Like, look at Microsoft, right? Their current CEO is just doing an amazing job with execution and pushing products. So the jury is still going to be out. A few other thoughts is Bezos is, going to invest more and more of his time into Blue Origin, into, satellite, into internet constellation. And it's going to be another kind of interesting 10 years, I think, between Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos. And Personally, here's my opinion. Rather than choosing sides, I know people love to just make things into kind of like this movie, good person, bad person, all this stuff. For me, I look at it as, you know, I look at it, I reserve judgment on people. I don't, make quick judgments and say, oh, bad person, good person, whatever. Every person has their pros and their cons, their flaws and their strengths. And I think a lot of times we don't know exactly what's going on in a person, right? How do you really judge a person when you don't really know what's going on inside their head, inside their heart and values? That's why I kind of take a step back and I look at it more as it's a learning experience. What can we learn? And what can we take with us? And what can we apply going forward? All right, I'm going to share one last story before I take a couple questions here. So I remember the day, it was like probably 2000. Let me actually double check because I don't want to. Amazon introduced the Fire phone. It was the Amazon Fire phone. It was June, it seems like 2014 or so. And I don't know if you guys remember this, but Amazon really wanted to get into the smartphone industry. Like they really wanted to take on, Apple. And so Bezos came out with this press conference, and it was kind of like this, Apple keynote, and he showed this Amazon Fire phone, and he was so excited about it. He's like, we've been working on this for years, and this thing is amazing. It has all these like forward-facing cameras. You could like browse or something with your, I don't know if it was with browse with your eyes or something, but it had a lot of crazy features. And I remember watching this keynote with my wife. I'm like, oh my gosh, you're kidding me. Like this phone is gonna just flop because it just didn't have that singular, like no-brainer value proposition. Like you just have to get this phone. And it was priced high, actually. It was priced as much as an iPhone. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is a flop, Amazon Fire flop. And I remember the stock just like took a hit, and over the next several months, like this phone just didn't do well at all. Like just it had bad reviews. Amazon basically had to, throw in the towel, trying to become a iPhone competitor. And Amazon stock just really kind of hit it. And I remember that was just a huge buying opportunity. And it was great because it was a great generational company who had made a recoverable mistake. And that was the window where if you got in 2014, second half of 2014, that was probably one of the best times in the past 10 years you could have got in with Amazon. The question is, okay, so if a generational 10x company hypothetically makes a big mistake, right? Let's say Amazon Fire Phone, it could be, whatever company makes a big mistake. How do you know if that's not the end of the company? Meaning, how do you know it's just not going downhill from there? And I think in my view, it goes down to really understanding the essence of the company, the essence of their strategy, the essence of their products. And if you understood Jeff Bezos, his management style, what he was shooting for, how he executed, how he ran his companies, etc., the focus on customer delight and all of the product lines, you would see that actually Amazon could spectacularly fail with one product, the Amazon Fire, and they'd be completely fine, right? One small mistake, right? That's easy to recover in the bigger picture. And in retrospect, that was probably the best time to get into Amazon. I think that's an interesting, valuable lesson that sometimes, companies will make mistakes, right? And those are some of the best times. I remember Apple in the early days, there were some mistakes with the early iPhones. I think it was like iPhone 4 or there was something, it just had spotty reception or something. And Steve Jobs had to come out to all the media and stock was getting hit and people thought it was the end of Apple, right? But again, a generational company making a mistake, but it's a recoverable mistake, huge opportunity, one of the best times to get in, right? Interesting, definitely awesome cases in the past. All right. Anyways, I hope this whole talk has been helpful to kind of think through some angles. My whole idea is not to convince you on anything per se, but just to share different ideas and angles and insights of how I might be processing, let's say today's current event of Jeff Bezos stepping down, but more importantly, what are some lessons, right, from Jeff Bezos, from his philosophy, from his whole generational company experience. I think the danger is we say, hey, who cares, right? Bezos sucks, Amazon sucks, right? I don't want to learn anything. But then you've missed out on a huge example of a crazy generational company that, hey, we can use these lessons to analyze companies in the future. All right, design a prototype test says, you say you analyze the product to judge the company. How can you justify Amazon? The product isn't that good. Things cost more, and as a seller, the seller's workers get screwed. What's to love? Okay, now let's analyze it. This is actually a great question. I actually want to pose and do a counter thing. How much, though, of that bias against Amazon is through what you've heard and through media and through kind of others' views of Amazon versus how much of it is purely just looking at, only the product itself, maybe only the numbers of filings, etc. That's kind of the question I want to pose here, because I hear this all the time about Amazon. Like, I'm not clueless. Like, there's so much criticism of Amazon, of Bezos, and you can name them, right? Let's say worker conditions. You could say their approach to third-party sellers, right? Think about it. Amazon Basics, like, I'm not going to justify Amazon Basics and their strategy where they're just completely copying all of these, companies in different industries and then becoming their competitors and using the data against them. I mean, in some ways, I could make a whole video on all of these questionable practices that I don't like about Amazon, right? I mean, there's actually quite a bit of stuff on Amazon that I'm not very happy about. And I could buy into all of that, and I could actually make a whole narrative where I just completely bash, Bezos and Amazon. And I'm not going to say that none of that is legitimate. There is, and that's the thing, everything has these pros and cons, right? It's the angle that you look at it. If you're looking at it just that angle, yeah, you can look at a lot of negative things and you say, Amazon, what the heck, I don't even understand why they're so-called worth, a few $1 trillion, why they're a generational company, they're terrible. But if you look at it from a different angle, why is it that Amazon has achieved its massive e-commerce dominance, right? And it's because of execution, and it's because they understand the customer's wants. Like, think about it. How easy is it to return an Amazon product if it's, one of their products sold by Amazon or, fulfilled by Amazon? It's like, if it has the free returns thing, it's like the easiest thing. I have yet to see, lots of companies follow that model. I mean, returning stuff, with other companies, it's a pain, right? It's getting better, but it's not as easy as Amazon. I order Amazon because, if I don't like it, I can return it so easily. But something so simple like that, right? It takes other companies so long to get, but Jeff Bezos got it from the early get-go, right? That was one of his first things that he built the entire Amazon ecosystem on. Free shipping, right? Fast shipping, great selection, all this stuff. Anyways, I think the point being is I encourage you guys to take a different look, not to get blinded or to have one-sided look at things, right? Trying to pick out the lessons, because these valuable lessons you're going to miss completely if you judge everything by its cover. All right, guys. Yeah, fantastic chat in the live stream. I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this live stream of Bezos, and I hope it's been helpful. If it has, please like the video, add a comment, and yeah, we'll go ahead and see you in my next video. This upcoming week, I've got some great interviews. Robert Leshner is actually tomorrow afternoon. He's the founder of Compound. Decentralized finance, DeFi play, giving interest on cryptocurrencies. I'm going to dive into DeFi with him. On Thursday, I'm interviewing Bruce Norris. He's a real estate timing expert. I think he's one of the best in the whole country. It's gonna be awesome. And then also I'm interviewing Meet Kevin on Thursday afternoon. Maybe I might just do it live, etc. And yeah, exciting stuff this week. Also, I'm interviewing Robert Breedlove, a Bitcoin proponent, next Wednesday. And yeah, getting more stuff lined up. So anyways, it's been fun, and we'll see you guys in my next video. Thanks.